And one of the new paradigms I've been working on at the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility in Grenoble, for instance, is microbeam therapy, and I have a couple of slides I want to go through. Who performs microbeam therapy in the moment? Nobody. How does it work? We don't have a clue. What is it good for? We don't know. So it's the most attractive research field you could go in. Nothing is known. What is it? It's actually quite old. It's basically a volume effect. Mouse brains were irradiated with deuteron beams. And you will see next a picture of a 1 millimeter beam and a 25 micron beam of tissue. And you can see it here. The 1 millimeter beam at 140 gray is basically evaporating the tissue. There's nothing left. This is done for. With 25 microns and 4,000 gray, obviously the tissue can repair that. And this is maybe not that surprising. It's a volume effect. It's very similar, I don't go into detail, with this new flash effect where the dose rates are extremely high. If the exposure time is extremely short, if you have a 4D interaction volume, the smaller the time, the more dose the tissues can tolerate. I don't think it's very surprising. Anyhow, so microbeam are basically in the order of 25 to 75 microns wide beams, and they are placed at distances between 100 and 400 microns. It depends. The issue there, most of these experiments are done at third generation synchrotrons, so the dose rates are also high. 16,000 gray per second is not so easy to get anywhere else. And so there's probably a combination of flash and the spatial modulation of the dose. And what is the idea behind this? So now you, on purpose, irradiate the tumors in inhomogeneous way. And the normal tissue perspective is there are the valleys of desire, there are the mountains of regret, and you hope that these normal tissues have a repair capability which is strong. So the small lesions can be repaired because they are tiny, although they are extremely high grays. Now, you need a differential effect for the tumor. Our tumor perspective is there are the valleys of the regret, low dose for the tumor, but there are the stings of death. And the repair capabilities are much smaller than for normal tissue. And now there's a stimulated immune response. That is the idea how that whole thing could work. Okay? There's nothing proven. There are just animal data. But there are some surprising animal data. For instance, here, microbeams 25 microns as 26 microns, spaced 210 microns apart from each other. The spinal cord of a mouse is irradiated, and there's no paralysis for doses below 500 gray. This is surprising, isn't it? And there are various hypotheses, and I couldn't go through all of them. There are data on zebrafish, on so many different systems. I just want to summarize here one hypothesis is, for instance, the maturity of the blood vessels and how they recover from these damages gives you a differential effect. So for the healthy tissue with mature blood vessels, the damage can be repaired. For tumors whose blood vessels are not so organized, it cannot, and you have a differential effect. This is a facility we built at ICR. There you can see 50 micron wide radiation beams on 2 centimeters. There are 49 of them, and you can irradiate cells with it, and you can analyze what comes out of this. And for instance, there's an expectation. These are now cancer cells. The broad beam is the blue curve. The red beam is what you would expect if you use the same model which comes from the broad beam irradiation, and you see the cancer cells obviously die more than predicted from the red curve. So there's some communication going on between these cells. Obviously, it's not as local as you think. For normal tissue, it seems to be different. These are just, we have written this up, the paper is not really submitted, and there are many of these results. Effects which you cannot explain through our standard models we are using in radiotherapy. And I just want to have mentioned flash there, the ultra-high dose rate, let's say more than 40 gray per second, the biology is changing again. Now I come to my concluding remarks, 5 minutes, if you will allow me to. And again, we will see how old you are. So basically what we have to take care of is all of these data, all of these investigations. There's the Institute of Cancer Research, the university. On the lower level is the Royal Marsden Hospital with their clinical trials. And you have all this information, you have all this biology. And in that, you have to find a scientific strategy to do the best for your patients. And now comes the next big player, artificial intelligence. I think to any meeting I'm going now to, at least 30% of the abstracts are with this. All of a sudden, we are all experts in that. It's amazing. I just don't know what it means. I like this one, and you have seen it, Brendan. This is a slide from Daniel Sirbs. Extent by which intellectual activities are expected to be replaced by artificial intelligence. I know it's in German, but you can basically see here the axis: high social interactions, low social interactions. Medical doctor tell us, as scientists, social interactions is not our strength. So we are somewhere low on that level. But there's a creative and the innovative side, and I think there we are strong, and that is something we should need. So a couple of examples there, who is threatened. A GP is somewhere there, borderline. I think, giving you the pills for a cold and so on is probably done by clever algorithms if you report the symptoms. Sorry if there are radiologists here. This is not my prediction. This is the Manager magazine, so I'm out of the... And for scientists, we are somewhere there. And I think what that tells us also for medical physics, we have to concentrate on the innovative aspects. If we cultivate the routine tasks of dosimetry, quality assurance, and so on, and we insist that that should be done by PhD physicists, I don't think this will be our future. We have to innovate, we have to be creative, we have to engage with the digital infrastructures which are now coming into the hospitals. All this is extremely important for us. And now I come, who knows the Big Bang Theory? Oh, if this is already only known by... Does anybody know Star Trek, The Next Generation? Because that is where I learned my English from, okay, when I was in Canada. Anyhow, there was Ex Machina, positronic brains and artificial intelligence, but my favorite one is this guy. This is Data. I don't know, I think it was a tremendously clever idea from Gene Roddenberry to name this guy Data, okay? So 1987, he came into life. I know most of you maybe were not even born at that time, sorry. So now I will make my last arguments along the lines of my sci-fi history. This is Gene Roddenberry, and the vision was for the 21st century, okay? The United Federation of Planets was there, and you had this vehicle to explore space. And I'd like you to read this, Space, the Final Frontier. We talked about this. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. It's a 5-year mission, so it's a research grant, basically. You get money to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. And I think we are forgetting this in our science very often. We conveniently travel where everybody has been before unfortunately. I think we have to be more daring and more exclusive. I know it's tricky with our funding organizations, but this is what I believe in. And he made some very nice predictions about leadership, and that's why the leader is Jean-Luc Picard, okay? He's the captain of the ship, he makes all the decisions, and he actually chose the name after Swiss scientists. They died in the 60s, Auguste and Jean Picard, and you see physics, inventors, explorers. So the leaders of the futures will be scientists. So I was highly relieved to see that. It was not the artificial intelligence. Data is the commander of the data, so that is good. They can do this. And he tried to take over this ship from time to time, if you remember. He was actually found after an attack of the crystalline entity. Now, that doesn't mean anything to you, but crystalline means transistors, silicon, okay? So it's basically Intel, Microsoft, Google, whatever you want to say. They created this. And then he has an evil twin brother, Lore. And who takes over? He looks mean, doesn't he? Anyhow, there's also a nice prediction about the medical doctor, and I know I'm stretching your imagination, but to name a Dr. Crusher is already something, Beverly Crusher. And how did she practice medicine? If you look at this, she's scanning the patient, she's scanning again, treatment and diagnosis at one time. It's like the MR-Linac, just a little bit smaller. So, and what I like about in the next season, 2 seasons later, Voyager, this is only an emergency medical hologram. So the medical doctor is replaced by an artificial intelligence, and because they're very high on the scale of social interventions, you need a hologram. I think that's an extremely nice prediction too. No offense to the medical community here. Gene Roddenberry, not me. So I think now to be a little bit more serious again, I think the problem we have almost solved is to deliver the right dose at the right time to the right part of the anatomy. But the big questions are, what is the right volume? What is the right dose? When is the right time for which dose? And how do we optimize combined therapies? And this is, we cannot do alone. And this is why I think this center is extremely important. You have to work interdisciplinary. You have to have a common education, working environment, big data. Engineering, medical physics, computer science is key to achieve this. But you need to engage with your clinicians, with your biologists, in order to make it work. And this center, I believe, can do this, or it should be the aim, or one aim, to facilitate this. And I think the last slide I have maybe shown 5 years ago in my lecture, but I still believe in it. Biologists, cancer biologists are saying this: with holistic clarity of mechanism, cancer prognosis and treatment will become a rational science, unrecognizable by current practitioners, and then that we will get logical conceptual structure and coherence that could rival chemistry and physics. And I think I've demonstrated before with the heuristics, this is not there yet, neither in medicine nor in cancer biology, and therefore physics, math, and data science engineering is extremely important in that game. Sorry, 3 minutes late. Thank you very much.